Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni viewer, and I'm here today to analyze a Godzilla collectible.
But aren't you worried about the FTC policies?
Not really, seeing as how this thing was made with adult collectors in mind. Since the product wasn't made for children, the video isn't aimed at children, and I'm not collecting data on any member of my audience, young or old, that means I'm not violating COPPA, right?
No, I guess not. Okay, now that we've cleared that up, what is the subject of today's video?
That would be this 1962 Godzilla produced by Neca, sometimes called King Ugoji by fans.
I've always had a soft spot for this design. I know there's been a bit of hatred for this version recently, with people calling it ugly, but I think that's doing it a disservice. This design set the standard for the rest of the Showa series by making Godzilla look like more of a dinosaur. The removal of his fangs, ears, and 2 of his toes, not to mention the reshaping of his spines, gave him a more saurian appearance that would be maintained straight through to 1975.
But this video isn't about the movie or the design. It's about the figure, and as a figure it shall be judged.
King Ugoji comes in a box designed to evoke a classic movie poster. The front flap, quite literally, displays an original Japanese poster for King Kong vs. Godzilla that's saturated in bright red. The back further evokes the aesthetic, describing the figure's features with lines typical of a sensationalized film advertisement from yesteryear. The front can open up to give you a look at the figure before you buy it, and this is where some people have run into trouble.
During the first run, certain figures were shipped with the head improperly attached, meaning it had a tendency to pop off in the box. This wasn't a common problem, but it did cause an extra hassle for certain collectors. I was lucky enough to get one that hadn't been sentenced to the guillotine. After that, it was a simple matter of popping this last section of tail in, and this figure was ready to go.
In terms of size, King Ugoji is the overall largest Godzilla figure Neca has produced thus far. It is slightly taller and considerably bulkier than every other iteration to date. The only figure that potentially rivals it is Shin Godzilla, but that's only in terms of length, seeing as how Shin is mostly tail. This of course is accurate to the movie, as this Godzilla was designed to be what is today termed thick, no doubt to evoke the discipline of sumo. The bulk also contributes to this being the heaviest Neca Godzilla.
Heck, it's even heavier than the Pacific Rim Kaiju on display behind me. Wherever you display this guy, I guarantee you he is not going anywhere.
King Ugoji has 23 points of articulation, including the jaw, head, neck, waist, arms, elbows, hands, fingers, legs, knees, feet, and 5 points along the tail.
The joints are there, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're easy to work with. The sturdiness of the figure does affect the mobility, meaning not all of the joints move the way they should, assuming they move at all.
You can pretty much rotate everything without much trouble, but good luck to anyone looking to bend the arms at the elbows or the legs at the knees.
I know it looks like you can, but I've tried, and those suckers are stuck.
That being said, it's not as if this is a statue. King Ugoji can still take dynamic poses, just not as many as you might at first think.
Where the figure really shines is in the detail. And boy oh boy did Neca go all out with this one.
The sculpt for King Ugoji is about as precise as you could ask for. Remember, unlike the legendary figures, they didn't have digital models to go off of for this design, so they had to use other references to get things right, and the result is possibly their best figure to date.
Most of Neca's Godzilla figures have usually had some sort of issue with them. Shin's head is too big, 84's toes are weird, the 94 jaw is too long, the GMK version doesn't stand flat on his feet unless he's in that squatting position. Some of them are minor issues to be sure, but they're all there. No such issues exist with King Ugoji.
Really, the only issue in the sculpt is a couple of spaces where the row of spines is disrupted to account for the joints, but these are incredibly minuscule and only noticeable if you're really nitpicking.
The quality trend continues with the paint, which is spot on.
The overall color is a shade which wavers somewhere between olive green and brownish gray, with some airbrushing to bring out the details of his grooved skin. It's perhaps a bit lighter than he appears in the movie, but it works and helps him stand out from other figures. The spines are ash white at the edges and dark gray at the center, and though the transition between the two isn't really gradual, the coloration still looks good and is pretty symmetrical between the two sides. Even the inside of the mouth looks good, and that detail is most likely to be obscured by the heat ray.
Speaking of which, that's an extra little goodie that comes with the figure.
The heat ray is a separate piece designed to fit into a slot in Godzilla's throat. Compared to, say, the heat ray which accompanies the 2019 Godzilla, it's not very long, but once it's in the mouth, it's fairly secure. The beam is made of translucent material, which means it can be illuminated for display. The sculpt, which is accented by opaque white paint, is meant to evoke the breathy aerosol look of Godzilla's breath in the early films, rather than the laser-like quality it would adopt later on. For some reason, the translucent material is colored a very pale shade of yellow rather than blue, making it the most inaccurate part of the whole ensemble. I have no clue why they decided to make it look like Godzilla was spitting lemonade, or something else, but that's what they went with. I suppose if you had a blue LED to set up for backlighting, it would probably have the desired effect, but it's still a strange choice.
But that's really the only bad thing I can say about it. Of all the Godzilla figures NECA has produced, this is one of their best, equaled only by perhaps the 2014 Godzilla. Considering how hard it is to find figures of this Godzilla design, especially for a reasonable price, I'd say it makes a good addition to any collection. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. Seriously though, this figure is very heavy. And people think the legendary Godzilla is the fat one.
If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it, as well as subscribe to the channel for more content of a similar nature. Also, check the description for links to our Twitter, DeviantArt, and Patreon pages, as well as the Amazon link for the novel Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, penned by yours truly. Thank you all, and we appreciate your support.